Welcome to the Grief Pie Podcast. This is a show where we motivate and inspire men to share their grief one bite at a time. Thanks for tuning in and adding your voice and stories so that we can all heal and find joy together. Now please welcome your hosts, Gary Scott and James Rafter.
All right, so we're just going right now? We don't need to stop
Go.
anything or hit anything?
Nope, just go.
Okay.
You have tissues close by?
Huh?
You got tissues?
My third set.
All right, buddy. I got you.
Okay.
I got your back.
I just want to get through it. I'm not going to get emotional. I'm just going to get through it.
Get emotional, man.
Okay. I remember them.
All right, take your time, babe. Take your time. This will be the toughest one we've ever done, by the way.
It was only 12 years ago. You'd think I'd fucking be okay now. Okay. I remember the moment that the doctor said, April has cancer. And I knew at that moment that our lives would never, ever be the same again. And it wasn't. So, welcome to today's episode of Grief Pie. With the new love of my life, Jim Rafter. Today's episode is about the day that we found out the diagnosis for April and for Jennifer. I literally, it was August 5th. Weird. The 5th was the day she died also. August 5th, 2012. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Jim, how about you? Welcome. How about you? Remember that moment?
Well, as per usual, we parallel, but we also have a little bit of different stories. I unfortunately, or Jen went through 2 finder ulcers. So her first story was, I think it was October of 2013. We had just opened up our business. Things were going great. Everything was coming into place. The kids were in great places. Everything was great. And all of a sudden, she calls me in from the office and says, "Hey, you need to come home. Something just came out of me." So she went to the bathroom and this blob comes out. And so we rush her to the hospital. And no one knew what the hell this thing was. It was just this blob, right? They had probably 10 doctors that came in to look at it, to try to do whatever. Finally, 12 hours later, we're in surgery and they're, cutting it out of her rectum and taking it in for biopsies and all that kind of stuff. So so they came back and it was, a malignant polyp, right? So they cut it out. did some, scooping and stuff. They never did any type of chemo or radiation. They just felt like it was just really early stage 1 cancerous polyp that they were able to get out. So that's all they did. Yeah. And then they let her, and then they just put her on colonoscopies for 5 years to just make sure nothing's growing back, right? Well, it grew back. And imagine, and I don't want to make this into the healthcare because that's a whole different thing. But we went through 5 years of colonoscopies and no one saw a softball growing in her butt. And that just frustrates me more than anything in the world. I mean, I've been given the excuses. I've been given the, oh, well, that's because we do it this way. And when we turn the camera on and blah, 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 blah. So we thought we had it beat. And that was 2013. So then we went 7 years, right? She went through her colonoscopies every year. They cleared her every year and said, you're good to go. But then she's, hey, man, I can't go to the bathroom. I mean, we're doing laxatives. We're doing all kind of stuff. She can't poop more than just a little bit of a tiny little razor hair, right? So then her primary doctor at the time is like, okay, well, let's get you exercising. Um, let's back off some of the drinking. Let's get a more healthier diet. So then we went to a vegan diet, stop drinking, doing some more exercise, walking, all that kind of stuff. And she just couldn't poop. And we went in and tried to get another colonoscopy, and the doctor said, or the HMO said, no, you cleared 5 years. You're not ready for one for another 5 years. So she was miserable. And at the same time, this is when my brother died in Sacramento. And so then she had to fly up to be there for the service and all that kind of stuff. And she was just so miserable. So then we got home from Sacramento, and finally the doctor, her primary, was able to get a CT scan ordered, just to make sure nothing else was weird going on. They still wouldn't give us a colonoscopy, which was good because they probably still would have missed the stupid thing. But Jen didn't want to do it. She knew. She knew. She hated CT. We've talked about this already anyway. She hated CT scans and drinking the juice and all the bullshit. So we finally got one scheduled for March. She fought like a bulldog and wouldn't do it. I finally took her across the street, our friend's house. They're like yelling at her. So we had to reschedule for another 3 weeks. Yeah, the 6 centimeter fucking tumor, man. Stage 4. The oncologist out of the desert was such an a-hole. I'm like, what are our chances? Are we going to survive? And he's like, well, everyone has a chance to survive. No, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's not what we want to hear, man. And I'll pass it back to you. So that was the day we found out and just kind of went home, called family, called my mother-in-law, and she drove down immediately because Jen was a wreck. on, having to figure out setting up stuff. But what they realized was that the tumor was blocking her rectal canal, right? So that's why she couldn't poop. So that's when they put her in and did an emergency ostomy bag, and we learned all about an ostomy and pooping in a bag. So I'll put it back to you. That was our first week after finding out how bad it was.
How old was Jen?
Oh, this was 2020. So what, 52? Right? 54, if that. She was born in 68.
Yeah. Same scenario, of course, because that's how we are. It's we had just come out of the disaster of 2009, getting our ass kicked, rebuilding our business, our lives. 2010 getting better, 2011 awesome, and then December 26th of 2011, we were going to head up to the cabin. Zachy was still here before he went off to the Air Force. Christopher was in college. He was going to meet us at the cabin with other family. We had an amazing holiday, from Christmas to New Year's planned at the cabin. And we, things were just blowing and going. Business was great. We were in the process of buying a new house. Everything was awesome. Let's stop at Buffalo Wild Wings real quick, which I've never entered again since 2011, December 2011. And let's grab something to eat real quick. You, me, and Zachy, me, April, and Zachy, before we head up to the cabin. And sitting there, all of a sudden she just is dying. We thought it was a heart attack, and we're freaking out. They're calling 911. Thank God. I mean, they're just literally right almost in the same parking lot. They're so close. They were there instantly. We were trying to find an aspirin to give her because we thought it was a heart attack. They get there, they're not sure what it is. They get her immediately to the hospital. They get to the hospital, and she's in excruciating pain. They go, it's not a heart attack. Luckily, we just don't know what it is. Well, it turns out her stomach exploded. Her stomach blew out. And she's like 44, I think. 40, 43, 44 out of 44, I think. So she's in the hospital, on the 26th of December. They didn't even rush her into surgery, which really pissed me off. They're like, she ate, so she can't. We got to wait. I'm like, we didn't even get served, maybe she had like some iced tea or something. We hadn't even gotten her food yet. Like, no, we got to wait. So she's dying, right? And they can't give her anything. She's in such pain. So they finally get her into the emergency. Her doctor, her surgeon, I wish I knew his name, because I would say it right now at what an absolute asshole this guy was. He walked in with just this attitude. I didn't know who he was, right? So I just said, hey, how's it going? When are we going to get in surgery? He goes, I am your surgeon. This is like this crazy attitude, like God complex. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, anyways, got her in there, put her stomach back together, never came out after the surgery. You know how you come out after the surgery, meet the family, and go, hey, this is how it went. Everything looks great. This is what we found, or whatever. No, the guy just fucking goes home. Such a dick. And it turned out he didn't do any biopsies on her stomach except two. And the other doctors we talked to her said, you got a 44-year-old woman whose stomach blows up? That's like, who doesn't have a history of ulcers or anything? That's just ridiculous. You should have done like 30 biopsies on that stomach, right? So they sent him to the lab. Everything's fine, right? So, but from that day on, she never recovered. She was in constant pain. She was always miserable. I mean, the paramedics had been to the house so many times. They just knew, hey, April, how are you? Let's get you to the hospital again. She was in and out of the hospital constantly, test after test after test. They won't find anything. Um, so, and they finally, it's like July or something, we're in Eisenhower again, and we're like, look, we're not leaving. We're going to do a Colombian sit-in. We're going to get 50 freaking Colombians to come in here and sit in this hospital and cause trouble until you fucking scope her stomach or find out what's going on. It's in her stomach, right? And so instead, these assholes, we're not going to get into medical shit right now because that's a whole nother episode, but instead, these assholes send in the psychiatrist. The nerve. So I'm in there with April because I'm just always sitting in there with April. And this douchebag psychologist comes in, psychiatrist, ever. And unfortunately, I have to drive by his office all the time here in the desert. Every time I go by, I go, and he comes in and he says to us, well, I think you guys must be having marital problems and there's something really wrong with your relationship and April's suffering, and that's what's causing all the problem. Now he just walks in. He didn't even talk to her, right? He just tells us this is what the problem is, that we're fucked up, our marriage is bad, and that's what's causing all of her stomach pain. So of course, I chase him out of there with a scalpel that was laying there, like, you get the fuck out of here. Who? No one called you. We didn't ask you to come in here. How dare you? Right? How dare you? So we finally make them scope her stomach. So they did, and the doctor that we had, who was, could give a shit, um, scopes her stomach and stuff. He goes, "Oh, we'll get the results in a couple of weeks." Like, couple of weeks? What fucking long does it take to read a result of you shoving this fucking thing down her stomach, right? I mean, let me look at it, right? Whatever. So almost positive is August 5th of 2012. We go into this to the doctor's office, right? And of course, the doctor's on vacation because it's August. Everybody in the desert's on vacation in August. So we have this dude. So we walk into his office. He sits down and he goes, "So you're who?" And I go, "I'm Gary. This is April, my wife. We're here." And he goes, "Oh yeah, yeah." And then he goes, "Well, he goes, "Well, where's our doctor?" Like, "Oh, I'm sitting in for the doctor. He's on vacation." I'm like, "Whatever." So he opens up the folder and he goes, "Oh yeah, okay. So April has stage 4 stomach cancer, and so we're gonna have to get you a port, and we're gonna have to do this, and we're gonna have to." And we're like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! What the fuck did you just say? Back up, fucker. What did you just say? You know what I mean? I mean, we're both sitting there like in shock, like, dude, hold on a minute. Open the folder back up. What did you just say? And it's like, well, April has cancer and stage 4 stomach cancer. It's a bad one. And we're like, we're in shock. We're just looking at each other like, are we hearing this or is this a dream or what the fuck is going on with this fucking guy? And next thing like you guys know, next thing you know, you're on the fucking hamster wheel, man. The next day we're getting a port put in, then we're meeting oncologists, and we're just on the fucking chemo doc. I mean, it's just like your world just spins out of control. You're like, you, y- you're just like trying to hold on to anything. It's like when you're totally fucking drunk and you're laying on the bed and the bed's spinning and you think if you put your foot on the floor, like the bed will stop spinning, right? But it doesn't. It's just spinning more. And that's how it is. It's just like it's fucking spinning out of control. And I remember like we were going to go to lunch after the doctor appointment. We still went to lunch, but we're still sitting there like at the table, like looking at each other like, what just happened? It it's like the world gets pulled out, man. Right? I mean, you
Oh,
guys get back and you're calling on the family and shit.
yeah. So so she got the diagnosis. They the a-hole oncologist that tried to explain, the tumor to us, you know, and we're like, okay, well, we understand what's the oncology situation, radiation, chemo, but she can't poop. So that was probably like on a Thursday. And luckily, by Monday, we had emergency surgery for the ostomy bag. But then that kept her in the hospital, for 5 days, and breaking down, not eating. And then once she got home, so this is probably, we're getting into May now, right? So it gets hot in the desert, right? And now we have to learn how to use an ostomy bag. And that's probably one of the hardest things she'll ever have to learn. I went through, therapy on how to raise her up, how to walk her, how to get her around, wheeled in a hospital bed, so we can crank her up and down. Because after that first surgery, it was really hard to recover from. And then we went through the shit show that was oncology and radiation, trying to figure out who goes first, because we never got chemo early on. We went right to radiation, and I kept battling, well, why can't we just go in and just surgery this thing? But it was just too deep inside. They were like, no, we literally have to take out half her body parts to get it, because of where it was. Yeah.
What does
And
that
I think
do?
we've
I mean,
talked.
we're talking about a woman who is fit, bougie, loves to dress, um, and now she's got to have a fucking shit bag attached to the outside of her body. I mean,
Yeah.
for Jen, what did that do to her head? What did that do to her brain?
Luckily, she was one of the toughest people you'll ever know in your life. So she just took it on. She's like, okay, well, whatever. So she was sewing and had people making bag covers and just figuring out how to make it, pretty.
Shit bag
I'm
cover for
busy.
sewing parties. I love it.
I'm busy trying to figure out how to stick, these tape things and stuff on her. And then to top things off, like, she didn't go through enough, right? And a lot of times what happens with ostomy patients is they'll get a hernia back behind that spot where they do the surgery. So now it wasn't just a flat tummy. She had a fourth or third boob that we had to have special bag setups. We must have gone through 20 different types of bags and setups and cutting holes and learning how to set all that stuff up. But then she went into radiation. And so we did the 5 weeks of radiation. And I swear to God, no one will admit this, and I won't spend but 2 seconds on it. I swear to God, the radiation caused the perforation in her rectal lining and caused the septic shock. So, I've talked about this, that Jen went into septic shock, right? And the a-hole doctor was, hey man, you're not gaining weight. You need to eat more and do better at healing. And she's like, I don't feel good. And I know the name of this doctor. And trust me, if I ever see him on the street, it'll be the last day he walks ever. Because he examined her on a Wednesday, and on a Sunday, she was fighting for her life at the hospital with septic shock. And from that point on, now they couldn't do chemo anymore, right? Because she's got to recover from septic shock, and the radiation. So they didn't start chemo for another 9 months. Don't get me started. This will be a whole different podcast. But
Yeah, we're gonna whip out that podcast soon because, yeah, I got a lot on that too.
but she was tough, tough as nails. Um, again, looking back, we took it in stride the best we could, and we had a lot of support. Kids came down. Her mom was down a lot, helping out. I had my sister and my brother-in-law. We're all down. So we had a lot of support, thank God, because I couldn't have done a lot of that by myself. And Jen just sat there like the little pretty princess in her hospital bed in the middle of the living room. And she took over, and um we just kind of took it day by day after that, right? I mean, that's all you can. You wake up and it's day by day.
That's all you can, and I call it the hamster wheel. You know, it's scans, MRIs, CAT scans, chemo, doctor's appointments, pain management, fighting with insurance companies, which we'll get into. I mean, it's just a hamster wheel. It completely absorbs your life. And again, I was too stubborn of an idiot to ask for help. Chris was at school. I didn't want to bug him. Zachy was away at in the Air Force. Um, Chris did finally quit college to come home. He just thought it was more important. Well, initially he came home for the summer, and then he saw, what was really going on. He's like, I'm not going back. I need to be here for mom. And then, that didn't last long after that. But yeah, it literally consumes your life. The difference between what I had going on, even though I took it on by myself, and what you had, regardless of how much help you think you had. I mean, yours was so much more hands-on, doing the colostomy bag, doing the meds, having the hospital bed there and all that stuff. Um, that was a lot, bro. That was a lot, my brother.
Yeah, and once she got out of JFK after the septic shock, she had dropped 60 pounds. So she was like, right. So she's, 70 pounds wet. Um, and wasn't eating, couldn't really eat. So, we're taking her to the specialist to do the tubes, right? The pick tubes and all that kind of stuff. And then feeding bags, right? I had to feed her, set up a bag every day to feed her, her 5,000 calories of whatever was in that bag, every day. It was crazy what she had to go through, um, just to get enough strength to where they felt like, okay, we can start chemo now. And then, of course, then chemo, right? Just kicked her ass.
Yeah, I know chemo.
Right. So, chemo. Um, so yeah, so the hamster wheel is a great way to put it because it never ends on the next challenge. Um,
Now that day, so you're not home, Jen's at home, stay at home mom. So what did the doctor just call her and say, "Oh, hey, great news, we've got the results, and yeah, you got incurable cancer. Hey, come on in and get a lollipop and an exam, and we'll start the shit show." That would happen that
they
day.
well, it was a little different because we went directly from finding out that we had a 6 centimeter, we have a massive softball in her butt, and right to the hospital within a couple of days
Right.
for the ostomy, right?
So I mean, what happened? So they did the scan. They get the results of the scan. And then they called Jen and said, "Oh, here's the results of your scan."
They didn't know it was actually like, no, they saw it and said, we got a problem. So within 4 days, 5 days of the CT, she was in the hospital for the ostomy because they could see that she wasn't ever going to poop again, and it was just building up, in the colon. And so they just wheeled her in. I think it was probably the technician that said this is a problem and called the surgeon. And then they just said, we got to do this now.
When did they give you the C word? When did they say you have cancer?
Oh, I think it was probably in the hospital. I think they said, but I think we knew going into it that it wasn't going to be good. And once they're like, you got to go to the hospital and get an ostomy done. Um, we knew that it was going to be bad. Because they told us right away that there's a 6 centimeter tumor
Now,
there.
what does
And
that mean in relation to like a golf ball, a tennis ball,
softball,
like
a
a softball?
softball.
So
Yeah.
that's a big ass tumor. I mean, how did they miss that all this time?
We I have theories, and I don't want to get into it now, but I've been told a couple of different things. And I did pursue some malpractice stuff, and was politely told that the lawyers worked for the surgeons and the hospitals, and that no one would take our case. So
Yeah, got that. Well,
um
with April, I mean, we knew she was hurting, right? I mean, poor Zachy, times that he was here is like when she was by herself because she couldn't come in the office, she'd just be like bundled over in pain. They didn't prescribe anything for her because they, didn't. Because of course it's all mental, right? The
yeah.
pain. And so, they do like regular like x-rays or what, I don't know. In any case, so I mean, we knew something was wrong. No way on earth were we thinking cancer. I mean, unless it was in her brain, but we didn't discuss it. We just figured, Jesus, you either got like a really bad ulcer. She took her work to heart. April. She took
Yep.
everything to heart, right? I mean, she took care of people. And she had built up a great property management business, like 150 properties that she ran. And 24/7, I kept telling her, stop freaking doing that. Um, and it's like every property was her property, right? Every client was her family, and she just took on so much. And I think she had a lot of stress. So we're like, it's just got to be a real bad ulcer, right? You've just given yourself a fucking ulcer from all the stress. You just take all this too hard, too personally. And you work too damn much. Your diet's for shit. We got to make some changes. Never in their wildest dreams thought cancer. And of course, never in our wildest dreams thought stage 4 stomach cancer. I mean, because, I know from personal experience that anything, once you start getting 2, 3, 4, your odds keep getting worse, right? And it's like when they told Jen stage 4, yeah, it's just a number you don't want to hear, right?
You know what's interesting about that? And I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because in 2013, when she first had what we call the prolapsed polyp, right? It was the polyp that came out. She literally pooped out a cancerous polyp. And they biopsy and they're like, oh, it's only stage 1. And everyone's like, oh, only stage 1. No big deal. We'll just scoop it out and watch it. It was
They
only
didn't
stage 1.
they didn't recommend any
No,
anything, any treatment?
nope. Just colonoscopies every year to make sure nothing grew back. And for 5 years, they missed a softball growing in her butt. And it just because it was only stage 1 when it started.
But I mean, even Jen knew. She could tell something was wrong. She kept saying something's not.
Oh, she was violently mad at her doctors, and the doctor was nice enough. I mean, he was a younger kid. He ended up moving to Texas. He had to get out of California and the California HMO system. But he's like, there's nothing I can do. I've got to get approvals. I'd give you a scan today or I'd check it today, but all I can tell you is change your diet. And that's what they kept going, right? Is change your diet, change your lifestyle. It's on you. It's like they were telling April, right? It's on you. Change your lifestyle. Change what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't care how much pain you're in. We're not going to do shit. We're just going to
Yeah.
tell you that you're fucking stupid. Um, I do have to say, once from that Monday, I mean, they scrambled pretty hard at that point. Um, Now, obviously, the surgeon screwed up. Had he done his job and biopsied that whole stomach, they would have found the cancer in December or January, right? Instead of us finding it in August. Maybe it would have made a difference, maybe not. Maybe 8 months isn't enough time. Maybe it was just too embedded. It was already stage 4. Who knows? But it sure was shit would have been nice to know in 8 months sooner. We could have been fighting it sooner. She wouldn't have had all that pain sooner. They would have given her pain meds sooner. But this dude was an egotistical asshole. This surgeon was a total piece of shit. I wish I knew his name. I'd literally say it right now. I don't give a fuck if he sued me for defamation for $83.3 million. I don't care. He was an asshole. And I think he's partly responsible for her 8 months of suffering. So, but besides it, but after that, though, I mean, they raced her right in to get a port, which was I fought to not get a port. I didn't get a port. I refused to get one. But she was going to have a lot more chemo than I ended up getting. So she had to get a port. We got an oncologist right away. He sucked. But I'll tell you who is amazing, and I don't know if you had the same experience or not, but I'll tell you who's absolutely amazing angels on the planet are the chemo center nurses at Lucy Kirchie Cancer Center. Shout out to Lucy Kirchie Cancer. Now, a lot of people don't like them and leave the desert because we don't have good cancer treatment here in the desert. But the nurses, the humans inside Lucy Kirchie were angels. Those women who go in women and men, transgender, whatever. I don't want to mispronoun anyone, but those people who walk in there every day and do that job and watch people dying every day, I don't know how they do it, man.
Yeah. So we were there for the radiation, and our radiation doctor lady was awesome. That team was awesome. But I was so mad at Eisenhower and the treatment through the desert system that I fought. And that's the big thing is we had to be our own advocates. You can't rely on anybody other than yourself to fight. And that's when we were able to get to UCSD. And we did all our chemos out of the Encinitas facility through UCSD. And you are 100% correct. Got it in that they are the most amazing. Well, hospice is also pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they
hospice is pretty amazing.
they are such an amazing crew. That what they have to do every day. It's just really impressive on how gentle, how nice, how they really work hard, knowing that what's going on is so just difficult. I mean, Jen would have to go. I think we'd get down on a Monday because this is when I bought the motorhome because she had the ostomy bag and she can't go to Chevron and pee and stuff like that, right? So
I'm gonna put a woman who doesn't like motion doesn't like cars and doesn't like to travel and anything that's moving, I'm gonna shake her ass in a motorhome.
She actually had a few good trips. Um, but it was better than the other options, right? To get her
That's
down,
true. That's true.
and then all the help we had to, get her down. We'll talk stories down the road
Because
about,
I want to go back to the day because that's kind of what our topic is today. So you had said I was still kind of out of it for a minute there. Sorry, I don't mean to be selfish. When you got going, but you had said that so she calls you to come home. Because did they call her? I mean, she said I got you. We got to talk about
okay,
something. And,
so not to be too graphic, right? But
right.
this is Jen, right? She would just deal with stuff. So she, for like a year, would, sit down and go to the bathroom
Oh, that's when
and
you found the thing that came
would
out.
have this thing
Oh,
kind of coming out. And she thought it was just a hemorrhoid that she just
yeah.
kept pushing back. And
So
then
then
one
when you
day,
guys, but then when you guys got the full blown diagnosis, that's when you said you got home and started calling people, calling her mom, and doing all that stuff.
yeah, that first 2013 when that thing came out, because she's
Yeah.
sitting there going to the bathroom, and all of a sudden this blob comes out, and she's like bleeding and doesn't know what the hell it is. So I race home, throw her in the car, take her to JFK. They have no idea what it is. I mean, that's when there's like 10 doctors, looking at her going, ah, it's really nasty looking. What the hell is that? So they finally, it took us 12 hours before we got another great guy. And I'm going to give you this shout out to a fantastic surgeon. Dr. Barnes was on duty that day at JFK. Super nice guy. And yeah, he was the surgeon that did that cut it out and cleaned it out and did all that. Um, and then that's when they said, and then that one they sent out for a biopsy, and that one took, a couple of weeks to come back as, yeah, it was stage 1. And then they're like, okay, well, we think we've got everything. And I think she went back in for one more surgery to make sure everything was clean. Um, and then you're good. Just 5 years of colonoscopies.
So when the second diagnosis comes in, what what prompted you guys to go in that time where they finally did something that let you know it was cancer? What was that? What was that? I
Jen couldn't
missed that
poop.
part.
Jen could not poop.
Right.
Jen, we probably started somewhere in September of 2019, where she was just like, this is ridiculous. I can't poop. I cannot go to the bathroom. And that's when we started with all the requesting new tests and checking everything. And we got this, stonewalled and um and had, and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about with April, right? Is had in September or October of 2019, they had done a CT scan or some more of the test because, hey, she can't poop and it's not her fault. But they kept saying, no, we're good. It's her fault. Make her change her diet.
No, 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 fuck that. 2013 is when they fucked this whole thing up. That's when you don't say, oh, it's only stage 1
Yeah.
cancer and we'll just kind of hang out and see what happens. I mean, I know they do that now with if you're 70-year-old man and they say find stage 1 prostate cancer. They're like, dude, it's so slow growing. You're gonna die of old age before this thing's a problem for you, right? So why cut it out? Why do shit because it's so going? But for what she had, they just it's like, yeah, hey man, come in once a year and we'll do a colonoscopy. Is bullshit. They should have when they did the surgery, they should have radiated that area and make sure because once you cut into that shit, that it releases it, you know? That's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Trust me, man. Yeah, I there's a zillion things that go through my brain on how we could have prevented her death, right? How healthcare could have prevented her death. Um, and it's tragically funny is that I got so mad at her for putting off her CT scan for a month in 2020 because I'm like, what would that month have done for us? We could have, maybe we needed that extra month. It wasn't her fault. It was she knew she could feel her body, just like April, right? She knew her body. I mean, she felt whatever was going on, right?
Yeah. And the
Same
crazy
with
thing is, like you said with Jen, I mean, the weight loss was crazy. I mean, she just started losing weight. And then, it's a real mind fuck for chicks. I mean, April's body was just getting so decimated. She lost weight so fast, um, that she just it was just really emotional for her. I mean, she wasn't a clothes horse. She wasn't Miss, look at my body. She never went and got Botox or boob jobs and all this stuff. And no offense to any women that do. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Look your best. You only got one life. Do whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit. But I mean, she just wasn't that type. She almost never wore makeup. I mean, she didn't even wear makeup. She was just she had beautiful skin and all that stuff. But so when her body just started just shriveling up and just going to, I mean, it was really traumatic for her. The pain of that, and like I said, right out the gate, because this is kind of about the day we found out this podcast. But I mean, right out the gate, I don't think we started calling people. I don't remember sitting down with Chris and Zach or any family member and saying, "Hey, April's got cancer." I honestly, it was so shocking and such a blur, and we just were thrown on the hamster wheel so fast. I honestly don't remember doing that. I do remember the boys' response, right? The boys were like, "Mom's such a badass." It's like, all right, she might as well have a cold. I mean, Mom's a badass, right? I mean, it didn't compute in their brain that mom could die in a year or 2 years, right? I mean, it didn't even enter their, I mean, maybe it did and they didn't share it, but most of the conversation were, Mom's got this. Are you kidding? Mom's the toughest human on the fucking planet.
it would be interesting down the road at some point, bringing our kids on what they felt when they first found out, right?
That ain't gonna happen with one of mine. Just
Um,
not. I mean,
and again,
maybe. I mean, I would love for that. I'd love for all five of them to be on the Zoom with us. It would be epic. I mean, it would be so awesome to get all five of them on there and you and I and do what we're doing. I mean, if hey, your kids know Chris and Zach. Have them
right?
all get on a group text and you
So
know,
it would be, I think someday down the line, right? They'll get ready. They'll get to that place. For me and for Jen and I, to use actual English, for Jen and I, it happened so quick from the CT scan, finding the tumor to going in for that um, ostomy surgery, that it wasn't, hey guys, rally round, we got news for you. It's mom's in surgery, having half her colon cut out, um, so she can poo.
yeah.
And that was the whole conversation of, yeah, and then, well, why? And then, well, she's in the hospital and she just had major surgery and she has cancer. She has a tumor. Um, and this is what we have to do right now. And we always thought, again, Jen always hoped and thought that we, at some point, get the tumor out, beat the tumor, and then reverse the ostomy bag. Because you can reverse those. Um, but for whatever reason, I was told, I said it earlier, I was told multiple times that that was not a tumor they could go get. They were either going to get it through radiation or chemo, or it was just going to slowly grow to the point where it killed her. So
Well,
sucks.
yeah, I so many regrets, so many what ifs, so much bitterness, so much anger, so much frustration. So much needless pain, so much needless suffering. I mean, I'm wearing you can see it,
I can see it. I saw it earlier.
my fuck cancer t-shirt that I like to wear on a regular basis. It's just such a wicked creature. Um, and like I said at the opening, I don't want to go there again. But I mean, I'm talking almost 14, almost 12 years later, a good solid 13 years later, and I can smell that room, I can feel that room, I can hear the room, I can hear his words. I remember him holding that file and how he just so nonchalantly grabbed it, opened it, told us that April's got stage 4 stomach cancer, and then closed it up, tossed it back on his desk, and say, "All right, we got a lot of work to go. This one's a tough one." And I just remember it all. It just never leaves my brain. I mean, I don't dwell on it. I kind of just thought about it because of this stupid podcast. We were gonna do this one today. Um, but honest to God, it's as if it just happened. It's as if I just walked out of that room and sitting there, um, at the Applebee's and having lunch, and I had the salad with the ranch dressing. She didn't want to eat, duh. But she ended up ordering something. I don't remember. I just remember I had a salad with ranch dressing, and just not even picking at her food, but just looking at each other across the table and just going, "What the fuck?" And April didn't even cuss. I mean, maybe it wasn't a cusser, but I mean, did you just go into go mode? Or did you have that same kind of shock of what the fuck? I mean, or did you just have a feeling? What were you going through right then? Or was it just too much too fast?
No, yeah. So we came home. We came home from the CT scan, and it was just the two of us at home at the time. And it was just a what the fuck moment, looking at each other, going, okay. And again, Jen, the fighter she is, she's like, all right, well, we'll deal with and do it, And then we got on the horn, got the call from the surgeon, they got us set up with surgery the couple of days later, that Monday. And from there it was just a whirlwind. It was just, you never had time to stop and think about it. It was always something else was going on. Because we went from surgery, then we went from surgery to therapy to learn how to do the ostomy. So we constantly had nurses in, and Nurse Deb, you know Nurse Deb,
I know Nurse Deb.
she was one of our nurses that taught me how to
We love Nurse Deb. Shout out to Nurse Deb. We love
a nurse. We love a bit of a Nurse Deb. She gave me my LVN practice.
I don't want to. Yeah, we're gonna leave that.
Um,
Hey,
uh,
John, her husband, John. Hi, John. We're not
but
crushing on your wife, Deb. Well, we are, but I mean,
once she taught me how to do all the sticks and needles and poking and checking. She just come by for a visit. So it was always just, it was a whirlwind. The hamster wheel. It was, we never had a chance to take a breath. Because there was always something around the corner that was punching us in the face, right? I mean, I could probably sit down and with a yellow pad and write out the days she spent in the hospitals, um, which are quite a few over that 2-year span, right? Uh, but again, like you said, I can't dwell on it anymore, and I can't be mad at it. I can be sad. I mean, I cry all the time, especially, being alone, but, um, my anger. I don't know. No one's going to care about my anger. Everyone else has their own shit going on. There's not a healthcare professional in the state of California that would give a rat's ass about what happened. They just move on to the next one, right? So,
Yeah, it's a very clinical hamster wheel. I guess in essence, it has to be. As much as I disliked our oncologist, I think I told you I dragged her to UCLA to talk to a guy who is a stomach cancer specialist who was doing clinical trials, and he was a rock star. I wish I remembered his name. I want to say Pablo Parker, but it wasn't. I think Pablo Parker is the doctor at May at the the clinic in uh City of Hope. When I took
okay.
Jeff to City of Hope, I think his doctor was Pablo Parker. But I don't know, maybe it was Parker. I don't know. We saw so many freaking doctors. But we took her to this guy in UCLA, and he was a rock star, and he just said, "Hey man, I think I can prolong this for you." And that's the thing with cancer, right? It's time. Because every day, I mean, my brother was in a chemo pharmacologist for 30 some years. And that's what he said, dude, it's all about time because every day they come up with something better, they come up with something more, or they can prolong it a little bit more. You're just buying time when you hear you've got cancer, right? From that moment on, it's all about buying time. And I mean, every day we get up, it's about buying time. Let's just face it, shit, no one gets out of here alive, right? We're all fucked. It doesn't matter. But with the cancer thing. So yeah, I begged her to go stop doing the desert and go to UCLA, work with this doctor and do the clinical trials. And she just wouldn't do it. She had faith in her doctor, which I did not. And I just have to say, I get it to all you doctors. I know we've kind of been tough on doctors about this shit. I know you have a really brutal job dealing with this every day. Um, let's just say some of y'all better than others. But we should probably wrap this up, don't you think? I don't know how long we've been going, but I don't want to cry.
Yeah, it's definitely time. I do want to give a shout out and a call to action. Um, that the one thing I recommend to anyone going through this process, getting started in this horrible, horrible, horrible process, is you have to be your own advocate. If you are waiting for the healthcare community or the doctors to solve your problem,
We're gonna get on that one.
you're
We're
going to
gonna
be in
go
trouble.
there.
You have to be your own advocate. Listen to your body, listen to your significant other's body. If they're complaining about something, go get it checked out.
Yep, yep, yep.
Don't
So listen,
don't
guys,
sit on it.
thank you so much. Please, had some really interesting calls lately from people, really interesting DMs or whatever that crap's called. Um, there are a lot of people out there going through some shit, right? Either with the loss, with divorce, with certain stuff. Guys, you're all a bunch of pussies. Reach out. Don't hold this stuff in. It's such bullshit that guys don't talk because the guys who've reached out to me who are letting it out feel better. And there's a lot of pain out there. So reach out to us one way or another, me and Jim. We want to talk to you about this stuff. Please share this podcast. We'd really appreciate it. Please give us feedback, likes, shares, whatever. Because this is what we're here for, right, Jim? I mean, this just really means something to us.
Yeah, this is about healing. And again, healing doesn't happen in year 1, year 2, year 14. It takes a long time and a lot of support. And guys, we can support each other 100%.
And we are just two guys sharing grief one bite at a time. All right. Love you guys. Please reach out. Jim, I love you. Thank you so much for this one. It sucked big time. And I'll see you on the other side.
See you on the backside.
This has been our weekly broadcast, brought to you by the Grief Podcast Studios. We can be found in audio-only format on all the popular podcasting platforms. Remember to like and subscribe and to hit that alert button so you don't miss any episodes. Thanks again, and until next time, treat yourself gently. And don't bite off more than you can chew. Healing is a process.